We're going to talk tonight about the psychology of romantic love and talk about what it is and what it isn't, and then move on to some other things. In the olden days, people talked about romantic love as though it were something mystical and magical, and if it happened to you, the love bug bites. You're not in charge of any of your thoughts or feelings. You're just swished along, and you're a helpless victim, and that's the way the movies show it. And they had a term in those days, which they still have now, soulmates. And in the olden days, soulmates meant that you had met your magical mystic partner and you never had to work at a relationship again in your whole life. And that's where we get those funny stories about a girl that just gets married and she runs down the aisle and says, "Oh, mother, mother, I've just come to the end of all my problems." And her mother says, "Yeah, you're right, honey, but you don't know which end." But marriage is not a cure-all, and it's not an end-all. Then there's the right way to do it, which is, of course, we love mystic bonding. We can even tell you what it is and that. But when you use the term soulmate that way, it's a whole different trip. So let's get started with some cool definitions of romantic love. You should know that Boyd K. Packer said romantic love is essential to the whole gospel plan. And there's a good way to define it. I'm going to use the board here. Hope you can see it. And I liked the book in the olden days, The Psychology of Romantic Love by Nathaniel Branden. It's out of print because it's for very healthy people, and that doesn't sell many books. I think you can figure that one out. We've already been talking about the development of the real self and the negative self, and you can see by those descriptions that really healthy people are really quite rare. Some psychologists have guessed 3 to 10% of the people are self-actualizing. We're going to be talking about that in November, the traits of a self-actualizing person or a healthy person. We're going to talk about positive psychology, which is gaining momentum as a movement in the behavioral sciences. And so far, most of our psychology has been understanding the negatives. And so we want to show you the good part too. Okay, so in his book, Nathaniel Branden, how many have ever read a book by Nathaniel Branden? He's written some really great books. But Nathaniel Branden had a wife, and they truly felt like they were soulmates, and he was married to her for 7 years. They were fishing on a lake, and a horrible storm came up and dumped their boat over. She was drowned, and he was not. And he was so heartbroken that he wrote the book, Psychology of Romantic Love, showing what romantic love is and what it isn't. And he had a great definition that I like. It's good for us to start with. And here's a quote of what it is. And I'll even write it here on the board. A passionate, and this word is not, doesn't mean out of control. I need you, I'll give me your class ring or I'll die. It's not the Hollywood version that sells movies to the masses who are in trouble, right? A passionate, spiritual. Now, he didn't use the word spiritual like a lot of us do. He meant I amness, the ability that I am a spiritual being, talking about the spirit self. He didn't just mean someone that loves organized religion. He meant a person who knew about his true real self. He didn't use that term like we do. I amness. Spiritual means I know my place in the universe. It's almost a word like humility, because humility shows our total dependence on a God or a higher power, and that we're nothing without him. And a passionate, spiritual, I want to get this right. I know I have some glasses here. Look all over the house for the cell phone. It's in my pocket. A passionate, spiritual, emotional, and that means that the person involved is a feeling-oriented person. Now remember, we've already talked about that in the previous lectures. Does anyone of you remember the difference between an emotional, a feeling-oriented person and a task-oriented person? And we talk about performance equals worth. And we told the story of a little girl who was 7 riding her new two-wheeler too fast on a gravel road, too fast around the corner. It skids out from under her. She skins her knee, comes in the house screaming and crying. Does anyone remember this story? And the mother, who is task-oriented, gets out her great big finger and starts to lecture. Look what you've done to your new bike. It's horrible. Look at your leg. You're going to need some stitches. Now we have to take you to the emergency room. That will be $800. Oh, no, we can't. Wait till your dad gets home, blah, blah, blah. And she's screaming her guts out, crying because it hurts. That's a task-oriented mommy. And they're also called performance equals worth. Has anyone ever heard that? It's not right. Your worth equals your performance, not the other way around. And to earn worth or love by performing a certain way is not the deepest form of love. And so, and we talk about the term unconditional love, how it only applies to your real self. So it's conditional. And that we use the term internal love about your soul or spirit, and external love. So an emotional person, performances aren't bad, but they can't come first. So the feeling-oriented person, a passionate, spiritual, emotional, and sexual, because healthy people in love make love. But the sex is not to get something you don't have, like it is amongst the masses. Sex is to celebrate something you do have. Whole different trip. And we talked about D motives and B motives. Does anyone remember? Being motive, where you celebrate your being. That's what healthy people do things for. And a deficiency motive is what sick people do things for. So they can get people to like them, to fill up an empty love bucket. So most people never think about this. They're about as deep as a mud puddle. And they don't think about, what am I doing this for? So we'll talk about this some more because all of you are staring at me like you weren't here before. Emotional sexual excitement. This is a great part. Excitement. Excitement can be deep and calm and gentle and quiet. It doesn't have to be rah, 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 constant state of orgasm. That's not the way he's using the term excitement. He means that people have a genuine, intense, priority thing going here. This is very important, to be romantically in love with somebody that turns later into responsibility and what Gordon B. Hinckley defines as wanting the highest form of development and the greatest happiness for the loved person. You get that? Or Scott Peck, author of Road Less Traveled. Did anyone read Road Less Traveled? It's an old book. And he said that love is extending oneself for his own and then another's highest form of self-actualization. Now, how'd you like someone to say, I have unconditional positive regard for you, Lisa. I am extending myself for my own. And then your highest form of self-actualization, you'd say, what? Can't you just say, I love you? Yes. And that's what this means. Passionate, spiritual, emotional, sexual excitement between a man and a woman. A man and a woman. And a woman. That's very important because it's not that it's, how should we say this? It's that the sexual excitement is a minor part of a healthy relationship, not the major part, as we see in many forms of same-sex attraction and even opposite sex attraction. I know all of you heard about SSA, same-sex attraction, but how about opposite sex attraction? The problem is not who you're making love with. The problem is, are you using them as a sex object for your unmet emotional needs? You can do that in marriage. People say, oh, this is okay, we have a license. We have a license to use love. And I remember a man a couple of weeks ago, and I said, you know, you won't cure your pornography problem until you quit making women into sex objects. Or men, it doesn't matter. Making human beings into sex objects is a neurotic practice, and yet it's in so many of our movies. Why? And stories, because those are made to sell. And the masses would love stuff like that because they're love-starved. And they use sex as a love substitute, which is a great tragedy to a healthy person because sex is a very precious and sacred thing. It shouldn't be used, no matter who your partner is, even your own wife or your own husband. Sex is not to get something you don't have, but it's one optional way of many, and it's a minor way of celebrating your mystic bond. And that's why we got to talk about romantic love and the mystic bond. And if we didn't use that title, Psychology of Romantic Love, we would say the mystic bond, exploring the mystic bond. What it is and what it isn't. Sexual side between a man and a woman, and I love this next part, which highly values, which, are you writing this down? You're probably faster than me. Which highly values, I've been driving a car all day, so highly values the being, I love Maslow, the being, B-E-I-N-G, means the soul, the spirit, the same business of spiritual up here, the being of each. Notice it doesn't say the body of each. Your body is a learning device. It's not you. Now, I've met some people that I've talked to on the phone many, many times, and I see their body for the first time. It doesn't matter that they don't look like what I thought, or I don't look like what they thought. They always say, well, you look older. Yeah, it's just my body, though. My spirit is ageless and timeless, probably the same age as yours. But so the being is the internal or the real self. Now let's go over that cool definition because I really love it. A passionate, spiritual, emotional, sexual excitement between a man and a woman which highly values the being of each. Now, people read that. How can you have sexual excitement about someone's being? Well, the whole idea is that sex is a minor way to celebrate this mystic bond that goes on between two beings. People come up and say, well, is there a lot of people that can have this? Well, I don't know, but I know it's one at a time. Oh, yeah, one at a time. Okay. A passionate, spiritual, emotional, sexual excitement between a man and a woman which highly values the being of each. So once you get that definition of romantic love or mystic bonding, then you'll know where we're going. Anybody who does not understand that? So we talk about it some more. You see, there's a mystic bond. And the handout that I gave you many weeks ago, it had emotional union, verbal union. Did anyone bring their handouts? Okay. Hey, can we borrow it? If I can find it. Yeah, just pass it up. And then you'll know the one I mean. Glad we have not a huge group. That's the love supplies chart. Yeah, it has on it. Now Stephanie will be happy because she got this board for me.